welcome to today's episode of Nurturing the Whole Child with Sister Miriam. Today we look at nurturing an exceptional child. Just before we define who an exceptional child is, I think it is just okay to generally state that all children are exceptional because, like we have said in our previous episodes, no child is like the other. Each and every child, I mean, is exceptional in one way or another. But in this context, when we talk about exceptional children, we are talking about those children who notably, in a very big way, deviate from average children. And this deviation could be in any domain of development. So they could deviate physically, emotionally, socially, and cognitively, or even academically. So this is what we would refer to in this context as an exceptional child. It's also worth noting that we also have those children that we will, for purposes of this context, refer to as twice exceptionally. So these are children who, through medical diagnosis, have been found to have special needs like autism, those children falling in the autism spectrum, children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or children with language disorders. And then on top of those challenges, these children still exhibit giftedness. So for purposes of our presentation and even in the coming episodes, we are going to refer to these children as twice exceptional. But today we just look at just exceptional children. Like I've said, children who deviate, they notably, not just deviation, but deviating, but notably, meaning in a big way, deviate, and they are different from the average child in whatever aspect of their growth. And I know as parents and as educators, we may ask ourselves, then how do I know if my child is exceptional? How do I pick out an exceptional child from the rest? From the word notably deviating, it may sound like it's not so hard to pick an exceptional child from the rest of the children. Because, like physically looking at children, and a physically exceptional child will definitely be quite slightly, not slightly, but very big, maybe either big for their age or when we are talking about twice exceptional, very small for their age. So there are those aspects of exceptionality that you can easily tell out because they are physical. Intellectually, especially for educators, it may not be quite a challenge, although there are tests that can be done to establish if a child is exceptional or gifted. So intellectually, as a teacher, if you constantly see that this child is easily interacts with the content that you give in class and quickly gets bored and is overly curious, then those are telltale signs of exceptionality, especially in academics. Emotionally, children who are exceptional emotionally will display emotional expressions that are quite different from what children of their age would display. Like a child who is, very empathetic, a child who is able to process emotions and, display a high sense of empathy, until you're left wondering, how old is this child again? A child who looks at situations, seems like they're able to synthesize them and put themselves in the shoes or in the context of another person, where as an adult or even as an adult parent, a teacher or a caregiver would be left thinking, how is this child able to understand this? How are they showing that level of empathy. So in most cases, it's not impossible to tell when a child is exceptional. Even socially, you'll find these children who always fit socially in groupings that are slightly higher, not slightly, but in most cases, overly above their developmental age or their chronological age. So, in essence, an exceptional child is generally a child who is clearly out of the average spectrum, whether in terms of their cognition, in terms of their emotional growth, in terms of their social growth, and in terms of their physical growth. So, as a person, whether a parent or an educator or a caregiver, how do you deal with this child? In most cases, these children are not so easy to deal with, and especially because most of us are easily poised to handle average children or and average situations. So most of the time, these children come out as being quite a handful. We never seem able to satisfy their curiosity. They are always asking. They are always talking. They are always inventing. They are always, coming up with new things. So how do we handle such kind of children? I need to say, just like any other child, an exceptional child will need love. Just like any other child, an exceptional child needs love. An exceptional child, like any other child, needs to be given boundaries, to know this is within which we operate. These are limits within which we operate. This child needs to be given guidance. This child, again, just like any other child, needs to be shown respect. They need to be listened to. Those are the bare minimums that anyone dealing with a child, whether a parent or a caregiver, is expected to give. But much more for an exceptional child, you need to accept this child for who this child is, more than what you want them or more than what you think they should become. A lot of times we are taking care of children from a perspective of, I am building you, I am nurturing you, and as a caregiver or a parent, you already have the end game. You already know, you've already figured it out. This is how I want my child to turn out. And it's high time, as we need to look at children and take care of them and appreciate them and accept them for who they are, not necessarily for what we intend for them to become. So, as you're taking care of an exceptional child, you need first to accept them. Let them know that I am accepted. I'm not a nuisance. I am not, I am not an aggressor. I am not in the life of this person, to make them feel uncomfortable. So once you accept this child, once they know that they have a space in your life, it becomes a lot easier to deal with them. When handling an exceptional child, you need to be careful about their interactions. Who are you exposing your exceptional child to? A lot of times when these children are put in environments and contexts that are not challenging enough, they get bored, they become hyper. If the environment and the context is not stimulating enough, definitely they'll be difficult to handle. So you need to manage their interactions, expose them to peers who share similar interests, expose them to environments that are highly stimulating and environments that speak and respond to their interest and curiosity. Also, expose them to people who understand their exceptionness, if there is such a word, because at times we have people around our children who will make us feel uncomfortable or our own children feel uncomfortable. So if your child is always asking, Mom, what is this? How do we use this? And maybe you have guests, or you have people living with you who feel like this child is a nuisance, or you're taking them to spaces where their curiosity is not appreciated, then you are trying to suppress this child and you are not helping the child. So manage their interactions, having known them as a parent, because most of the time it's expected that we are going to notice this exceptionality of our children right from home. Though at times teachers are able to tell how exceptional our children are from an early age, because of course teachers spend a considerable amount of time with our children. So once after observing your child within multiple concepts, multiple contexts, after realizing that this child is exceptional, be also very intentional about their interactions. Expose them to peers who challenge them. The other aspect that we need to consider as we are handling children or taking care of children with who are exceptional is to realize that we need to recognize how their personal and instructional needs differ from other children. So if you're handling an exceptional child, and you know the content you're giving, if it's in a class for instance, is just way it's not at the level of this child, you need now again to recognize that this child has different needs and structure their instruction to a level that meets them and speaks to them. Because having realized that a child is exceptional and you keep expecting them just to operate in an average setup will frustrate you as a caregiver or as a teacher or as a parent, and it will also frustrate the child. So, in taking care of this child, be cognizant of the fact that their personal needs and their instructional needs are different from those of an average child. Another thing that we need to be aware of as we take care of children who are exceptional is to realize that these children could be undergoing a developmental crisis. Sometimes these children have uneven development because it's possible that a child is exceptional in one aspect of their development and not in another. So this a child may be cognitively so exceptional, but they could be struggling emotionally, they could be struggling socially. So if you do not notice that, now you'll be using words that are not very kind to this child. It's possible to hear someone say, this one scores very high grades but cannot interact with other people. Or this one is scoring very high grades but is emotionally dwarfed. So, as someone handling a child who is exceptional, we need to realize that while some may be multi gifted or exceptional in many dimensions or in many domains of development, some may be exceptional in just one. So they may be so good, so exceptional in their language development, while actually, when you look at other things like arithmetic, they are not as exceptional. So once we realize that as caregivers or as teachers or as parents, then we need to support these children in the areas that they could be struggling in and not use their exceptionalism to put them down or to make them feel like, look, you're good in this. Why are you not good in the other? Because a child could be exceptional in one aspect of development or in many. We also need to be more of encouragers. We need to encourage these children. We need to observe them and handle them in totality, not always picking out at what, because it's possible, like I've said, that they are good in one aspect, not in another. So we need to encourage them. Encourage this child. When the child comes home and they are feeling like the system doesn't take care of me, the system is, I don't feel understood, I don't feel like I fit. Encourage your child. Pick out what they stand out in and encourage them and look at what they are struggling in and try to build them up. Because most of the time, like I've said, they could be going through a crisis. They may not even understand how come I'm so good in this and yet I'm struggling in something as easy as this. So you need to work with this child, lifting them up, encouraging them so they don't feel lost. Because being exceptional means that most of the time you are not fitting where the majority are fitting. So you can imagine that scenario, and especially for a child. You see, as adults, most of the time we have capacity to handle criticism, to handle not being accepted. But for a child, this is a whole hard thing to deal with. So when a child goes in a class of 30 children, always feels out of place or different, you can imagine they will need an adult to urge them on, to encourage them, and to make them feel that there is nothing really wrong with them. Another thing, as someone handling an exceptional child, is to try and emphasize not always on the grades, but more importantly, on the lessons learned. So every time your child comes home, even with schoolwork or even with their school report, in as much as you will appraise them or affirm them and celebrate them for getting the A grades, also let them ask what the whole what lessons other than the grades, outside the grades, what lessons they have learned, what have been their experiences throughout the term. For instance, I can see you got a 95 or 100% in science, but what lessons have you learned throughout the topics that you have covered in this subject throughout the term? So we need to focus, remove focus from the grades, and also and focus on the lessons, because most exceptional children will look at, sometimes they may not be so interested in the grades. So also show interest in other lessons covered other than in the grades. Another important thing is that we need to be good listeners. These children are very curious. They will ask and ask and ask. So be a good listener and do not be rushed out to give answers and suggestions. Elicit their perceptions. Get to know what is it that they think. Don't be quick to offer suggestions and to offer answers. Listen to them. And as you listen to them, make them feel respected, because children are very intelligent. Most of the time, more intelligent than we as adults think. So if your exceptional child is busy making inquiries and asking things, they can see when you are answering, when you are absent-minded. Listen actively. And as you listen, do not quickly offer those answers. Delay them. Do not make it look like there's a power struggle. Try to listen to their expectations, because their interests and their goals may not be your goals. Follow their interests. What are they interested in learning? What are they interested in knowing? Spend more time in that. A lot of times as adults, we come to handle children with our own perceptions. We do not even consult them. What is your interest? What do you want to do? What do you want to become? We already have our own suggestion. But for these exceptional children, we need to follow their interests and leads as they learn, instead of pressuring them with our agenda. Don't focus on the child, giving them your own agenda, laying it on the table. This is what I want us to achieve. This is what I want us to do. Let the child set their own goals. Even in academics, let them set their own targets. Let them challenge themselves, as opposed to you imposing things on them. So for exceptional children who have high language development, you need to talk up to them. Uh, you don't need to be worried about using complex vocabularies, because if even when you feel like this child is too young and you are tempted to use baby language, you are not helping your exceptional child. So talk up to them, raise your vocabulary, let them pick up those words, because for some instances, exceptional children, especially those with higher development in language, they will be able to construct longer sentences even when they are young. At an age where their peers are just giving one word, these children are already constructing and speaking in full sentences. So do not bring them down by trying to sound like a child. Talk them up. That way, you are helping grow their vocabulary as opposed to pulling them down in the hope of making them operate at their level. Remember once again that exceptional children deviate. They are not in the same spectrum as the average children. More importantly, recognize their need to question and respond critically. Do not feel offended when a child keeps asking you questions, because that is about curiosity. They will keep asking. As they are asking, respond critically. Do not just feel like it's a response I'm giving to a child, so I think I can say anything I want. You know. So this calls for us as caregivers and as parents to up our game, so that we don't feel like I'm just talking to a child, so I can say, I can respond the way I want. No, you need to be careful how you respond, because the child is listening and they are listening critically. Another thing you need to note that these children may be impatient with conversations. Their patience may be very little. So, they may not fall within those conventions of sit here, wait for me, I'll be back, sit still, be quiet, and all that, you know. So, in other context, and for people who may not understand uh, these children, they may be branded, they may be, you know, termed as hyper, termed as restless, and all those terms. But once you realize that they may not be patient, especially when they are on a task that they are not interested in, or when they are in an environment they do not consider very stimulating, then you will be more forbearing with them. And that means you will try and alter the environment and alter the context to fit them. Of course, we all get worried about our children not fitting within the normal conventions. As they grow up, it's important for us to discuss the need for conventions, but this without suppressing their need for curiosity. So, if a child is gifted, it is not able to settle in class, for instance, and keeps, once they get the concept, they want to dash out. It's important for you as a teacher to let them know, I understand that sometimes you are unable to settle down, but you see, for the sake of the others who are also in the same class, who may not have learned or grasped these concepts as fast as you did, it's important to try and be still for the duration of the lesson. And also try and give them challenging tasks, differentiated learning, if it's within a classroom concept. If it's within a home setup, try and structure the home routine in such a way that it takes care of this child. Because if you do not do that, it's going to be hard for you and also hard for a child. So if, as a parent, you realize or you feel that your child is exceptional, then you have a duty to visit your child's school or to sit with your child's teacher and together structure programs that facilitate differentiated learning for your child, so that school does not become frustrating for your child. And if as a teacher you notice that this child is exceptional and is generally just not within what we would call normal behavior in a classroom, you also have a responsibility to sit down with the parent and with the other teachers and come up with programs that help this child, so that childcare doesn't become frustrating, because every day as educators and as parents, we are faced with choice whether to cry or to laugh about bringing up children or nurturing children. So the choice is always ours to make, because children will be children. Even when they try to act who they are not, at the end of the day, they are very genuine. Whatever and whoever they are will come out. So what you do with it is your responsibility as the adult. So for an exceptional child, you are to be an advocate and not an aggressor. Do not be an adversary. You are not getting irritated by this child for being who they are. You are to advocate for them. You are not joining the group that feels like, what's wrong with this child? Why can't they just behave like other children? You are to sit at a place where you advocate for them and say, look, let's set up structures that take care of this child, because this child is exceptional. This child is different. That is where an informed caregiver sits at. When everyone else is making noise, when everyone else is uncomfortable with how this child is, your position, your space is to advocate, to say, no, we need to try and help them. We need to try and help them, not to fit in, but to function within their abilities. That is the position of an informed teacher, an informed parent, and an informed caregiver. So in our next episode, we look at the twice exceptional children, the ones we have said who have already been diagnosed with some special need like autism, like ADHD, like language disorder, and they are still gifted, because it's very possible to look at their disability and forget about their giftedness. So that's what we look at in our next episode. Stay tuned. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share this video so that we all stay informed about nurturing the whole child.